Welcome back, guys. This isn't gonna do. Give me that, Steven. With Xilonen coming out, there is an ability for us to construct an even stronger Noelle team, one that's even stronger than before. Today, there's not going to be any tons of crazy edits after this point. That was the last one. But what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the very important things about Xilonen in Noelle teams and what you can and cannot put in your teams, as well as some team ideas for you too. If you're looking for an entire video breakdown of Xilonen's entire kit and what to look for, that's going to be coming out in the next couple of days. I wanted to make sure our kit was totally finalized with the final changes before I put that video out there for you. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe if you want to see that too. Now, when we're talking about Noelle and Xilonen teams, there's a couple of things you need to know. Obviously, when you're making your team, you're going to have Noelle in it. The second character that we're going to be putting in this team is going to be Xilonen. She's not out yet, so we're going to just throw a Kachina in here for us. Now, this is very important. We have 2 Geo characters already. Now, this is going to give us Geo Resonance, which is very nice. This is going to give us that extra damage bonus, as well as the reduction to Geo Resistance for opponents that we hit. Now, there's another very important thing. We can't add any more Geo characters, Dendro characters, or Animo characters to this setup. That's because when Xilonen is released and we actually have Xilonen in our team, she's going to have a mechanic based around her Night Soul form and her elemental skill and elemental burst. It all is dependent on these sources that she has and which colors are active. Now, when you have Xilonen in your team, you're going to have these sources. They're all going to be default native to Geo. There's going to be 3 of them, right? So these 3 sources are default native to Geo. What you need to do is change 2 of them to another element. The only way you can change 2 of them to another element is by having a Pyro, Cryo, Electro, or a Hydro character in your party. You could have 2 of the same, right? So you could have 2 Hydro characters or 2 Pyro characters, and you would get 2 Pyro source elements with 2 Pyro characters. You would get 2 Hydro source elements with 2 Hydro characters. And the reason why we need that specifically is you need 2 of them to change, so you get that 36% resist shred, which is going to up our Noelle damage, as well as the resistance shred for the other 2 characters and their elements in our party. So if we have like Geo, and then Hydro Pyro, we would get Geo Shred, Hydro Shred, and Pyro Shred. If you add another Dendro Animo or a So if we add another Dendro Animo or a Geo character, instead of getting that resistance shred, it's going to turn Xilonen into more like an on-field DPS damage character, which is not what we're trying to do with this team composition. So this leaves us with a couple of different elements. We can use Cryo, Hydro, Electro, or Pyro characters. We cannot use any additional Geo characters. You don't really want to use Animo characters in this team anyway. One of the first ones to take a look at here, and probably is going to be the core of this team composition, is going to be Furina. Now let's talk about this real quick. Now Furina is going to be an off-field sub DPS character that also buffs up everyone's damage percent bonus, as well as healing percent bonus on top of that. We're going to have resistance shred from our Xilonen, which is going to be both Geo Shred as well as Hydro Shred, boosting up Furina's damage even more. Xilonen also, in the form that she uses the resistance shred, instead of doing damage with her elemental burst or her elemental burst procs, she's going to actually do additional healing as well. So this is going to help us make sure that our fanfare stacks are pretty much always maxed out. Even though they usually are with just Noelle, they're going to give you a little bit of faster fanfare stack procs. So that's going to help you there as well, and it's going to be boosting up the damage of your Furina. The other thing that Xilonen is going to be doing in this team is we're going to be using the new set on her, which is going to be fantastic. The new Notlan support set is going to be amazing on her. This is Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City. The 2-piece is going to give us a little bit of energy back for our Xilonen, which is pretty cool because she really only needs 2 stats for the support build, which is just defense and energy recharge. The 4-piece here is going to give us up to 40% damage bonus. So the 4-piece, after the equipped character triggers a reaction related to their elemental type, which is very easy for Xilonen to do, as she's a Geo character, she can crystallize basically any of the main 4 reactions in the game, right? Pyro, Hydro, Electro, or Cryo. You're going to be able to crystallize off of that with the Geo reaction. This is going to give us a 12% damage bonus for 15 seconds. Now, when you're in the Night Soul Blessing state and you trigger this effect, it's going to give you an additional 28% for 20 seconds. If you don't know anything about Xilonen, she's not going to be on field that long. You're going to pop her elemental skill in this team sort of setup that we have here, and that's going to put her in the Night Soul Blessing state. Once you do a couple of attacks, it's going to trigger her full 36% resistance shred and trigger this full 40% damage bonus from the Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City. And this is going to fit her cooldowns perfectly. She's got that 15-second cooldown on her elemental skill, and you're going to have 12% a bonus, have a 15-second duration, where the 28% has an additional, 5 seconds for 20%, or 20 seconds, I should say, total there. So this is going to be very good. This is going to be awesome. You're going to have full 40% uptime on that 40% damage bonus, and a full uptime on your resistance shred with Xilonen as well. Now, this is going to be additional damage bonus for our Furina too. So we're going to be skyrocketing our damage bonuses up for Noelle, for Furina. We're going to be resistance shredding for both of them too. Now, the other thing here is, what's the fourth character? This is probably going to be the main sort of setup that we have here. Oh, also real quick, you can also, if you choose to get Xilonen's unique weapon, her signature weapon, you're going to be able to get another 25.2% damage bonus for everyone up. So you're going to be getting 36% resist shred on your Xilonen for your whole party, for everyone involved. You're also going to be getting 40% damage bonus from the 4-piece Notlon set, and another 25.2% damage bonus. So 62% damage bonus and 30% resistance shred with a little bit of healing to help out your Furina's fanfare stacks on top of that. Fantastic. So another thing we can do here, though, we need to find a fourth member. And I think a lot of the times this is where I'm going to sort of solidify my core 3, like we just said. But there's another character that the first team I'm going to be using with is actually going to be Yelan here. Now, Yelan's going to add a couple of things. Her elemental skill helps Noelle get along the battlefield faster, even in something like Abyss, helps you get to wave. I love that. It's very unique in that facet. But the other thing that Yelan does do, obviously, she's going to give us her elemental burst, which is even more damage percent bonus. So we're going to have, 60% damage bonus from our Xilonen with 36% resistance shred, additive to this 4-piece bonus here. We're going to be having a whopping 56% resist shred for Geo, and then another 36% resist shred for Hydro. She's also gonna be doing off-field DPS bonus damage with her elemental burst, and adding damage percent bonus to our team. Now remember, we're also gonna be getting a resistance shred for Hydro. This is gonna buff up the Death Clarion dice damage that Yelan does do by a pretty significant margin as well. Since we're also using 2 Hydro characters, not only do we get all of that, but we're also going to be buffing up Furina and Yelan's damage a little bit by getting the Hydro bonus for 25% max HP from having the Elemental Resonance as well. And on top of that, the final thing that Yelan's going to help do is battery your team. Now, you have Lingering Lifeline, which can do a decent amount of damage, right? Run around the battlefield, but you're also going to be putting Favonius Warbow on your Yelan to generate additional particles. You're going to be building her in a, a pretty crit rate heavy build, so you can pretty much make sure you are getting between your elemental skill as well as a couple of auto attacks right as she leaves the battlefield or activates her elemental burst. Generate some additional particles, throw those into Noelle if you want to, throw those into Furina if you want to too. I personally also have Constellation 1. I do believe that this is one of the best constellations basically in Genshin Impact because of the things that it does both inside and outside of battle. But for this particular build, on top of being able to just run around the outside a little bit faster and get through the waves of the abyss from left to right, up to down, front, side, center, whatever, you're going to be able to get an additional activation of your elemental skill with Lingering Lifeline. This is going to give you even more particle generation, and if you time it out with like a high refined Favonius Warbow, it has a 6-second cooldown. So what you can do is space out your Lingering Lifelines, which normally has a 10-second cooldown. You can use one, activate your elemental burst, do some stuff on Noelle, switch out in and out of combat, because remember, one of the best things about Noelle is you don't really care if you swap out of her after she's used her burst, because her burst duration still continues. She's not like Ito, where if you swap out with the burst, it runs out and it just ends early. Noelle can get up to 25 seconds of an elemental burst that you can freely swap in and out of combat with her. So you can do that with Yelan as well, and that helps you generate even additional particles if you have that C1. So she'll be able to battery the entire team that way. She's going to be getting resistant shred and she'll be, with these 4 here, you're gonna have a lot of things here. You're gonna have both Hydro and Geo Shred from Xilonen. You're gonna have additional healing from Xilonen to help out Furina. You're gonna have the ability for Furina to buff up everybody's damage, including off-field DPS damage of Yelan. Yelan's be buffing up your Noelle's on-field damage. Kachina's gonna be buffing up everybody's damage, and Furina's gonna be buffing up everybody's damage. So you're gonna have basically like the untouchable squad out here running around the battlefield doing a bunch of stuff. You're gonna be doing crazy on-field damage, and you're gonna be doing crazy off-field damage as well. Noelle. You're not have to use any like crazy builds on your Yelan. You're just gonna traditionally put her in the Emblem of Severed Fate set for even more damage bonus. You're gonna have the Golden Troop set on Furina, and then in this team, since we're using Furina, you can use the Marchuse Hunter set to hit a fantastic crit chance to crit damage ratio. Like mine's 243 crit damage, 55 crit rate. This would traditionally be a pretty bad crit chance to crit damage ratio, but I get 36% more crit rate from Marchuse Hunter, making our build pretty amazing. Now we also have so much damage bonus in this team that one thing that you could do to min-max and also up the healing amount that you get from your Noelle, no matter what weapon it is that you're using, you can actually use a defense main goblet, just aim for the same substats, crit chance and crit damage, and use a defense main goblet, and you'll be able to get to a pretty substantial amount of defense. This build I think pops off to like 4.7k, 5k attack in some circumstances, with everything going right. So this would be a good white blind build. This would be even a good serpent spine build. On top of that, you'll have so much free crit rate for the Marchuse Hunter set in the serpent spine that you can just go for max crit damage and defense, maybe a little bit energy recharge. You're having troubles with that as well. So this is gonna fit Noelle fantastically. There's a lot of different ways you can utilize this. If you don't want to use the Marchuse Hunter set build, then you can still go ahead and use Husk of Opulent Dream still. This team doesn't rely on using the new Hunter set if you don't want to use that. Now, if you don't want to use these four, maybe Yelan is taken up somewhere in some other pyro reaction team. What other characters could we utilize here? Now, one of the other one I want to really think about is like a taser team with everyone's favorite, Fischl. Now, this will be pretty strong as well because Fischl will fit very well in here because everyone's gonna be buffing her up outside of Noelle. So she's still gonna get buffed up by Kachina, but our new 5-star Geo Mom, she's gonna get buffed up by Xilonen, right? We're gonna get 36% Hydro, Geo, and now we're gonna get some Electro Resist Shred as well because we're gonna be transforming one of those notes from Xilonen into Electro, right? One of those source samples. So we're gonna get some resistance shred there. Furina's gonna be buffing up Fischl off field, and then our Xilonen's gonna be buffing up Fischl off field as well. And then Fischl's gonna work very well in here too because she is a taser character, so she likes a bunch of different elemental reactions, whether it's from Undone Be My Sinful Hex, which is her Ascension passive talent, or if you have her Constellation 6, which is when your active character attack, she's going to be doing an extra coordinated attack that does electro damage. This works very well on this team as well because we're going to be having Furina applying Hydro, and then any of these are going to make some sort of reaction on the main field. So if we have Furina with hydroing things and Noelle decides to do an elemental reaction, right, with Crystallize, that's going to proc one of Fischl's constellations here. It's going to proc the Raven here, which is going to do an active attack, and that's going to do electro damage. And we're going to be able to hit the Hydro applied aura for electro damage. And that's going to proc Undone Be Thy Sinful Hex as well because, well, we're just doing free electro related reactions there. So it's gonna be a nice taser team. I've used this team before. It's very powerful. I've used this team minus Xilonen, and I had Yelan here. So it was Furina, Yelan, Noelle and Fischl. This will be making Fischl do even more damage because Yelan typically is just buffing Noelle and not buffing Fischl. Now this team's going to have 2 off-field buffers that will also be buffing up Fischl's damage too. So this is going to be a very powerful team for you to access. So I'm really looking forward to this team here. There's going to be another team that I'm also looking forward to trying out. Now this one's going to be with Raiden Shogun, and Raiden Shogun does some pretty cool things, very similar to Fischl with the Taser Squad, although not quite exactly as similar. Raiden Shogun's going to alleviate some of the energy recharge concerns of someone like Furina, someone like Noelle, because we don't have access to, you know, the Yelan strategy that I was using in the previous team. So that's going to help you get some energy recharge back there. And then on top of that, you're still going to be having like the pseudo taser with the Raiden Shogun elemental skill. And then one big thing that Noelle teams sometimes, in my findings, you know, can run into problems with is bosses where like you have a certain window to do as much damage as humanly possible, and you can just pop in your Raiden Shogun, burst right there, pop the damage into the stratosphere for a lot of characters, and burst right through that phase with the Emblem of Severed Fate main DPS Raiden build. Now Raiden's also going to be getting a lot of buffs up in this team as well. We're going to be still getting Electro Resist Shred for bonus damage on Raiden, and we're also going to be getting 2 characters, Furina and Kachina, or not Kachina, Xilonen, that are going to be buffing up Raiden's elemental burst damage even higher. So one thing about this build too with Raiden Shogun is this team has a lot of ways to buff up damage percent bonuses, which Raiden Shogun's already pretty good at due to her Ascension passive, right? The Enlightened one. So what you might want to try out is if you have a big attack percent goblet instead of an electro damage bonus goblet, because you're going to be hitting like 200, 250, 300%. Basically electro damage bonus or elemental burst damage bonus, because you're going to have the electro damage bonus from the goblet. You're going to have the wonderful like 60% from Xilonen, 50 to 70-ish% from Farina at Constellation 0. You can have even more if you have Constellation on your Farina. And then on top of that, your Raiden Shogun's going to get another 75% or so, 50 to 75 from Emblem of Severed Fate. So one of the things you want to think about there, like I said, maybe drop the electro damage goblet for an attack percent goblet and get even higher attack. Now, there's going to be one final thing that's super cool with this team if you choose to use this team right here, and that's if you have Xilonen Constellation 2. Now, Constellation 2 for Xilonen is going to add even additional buffs for everyone in the party based on what element they are. If they're Geo element, you have Constellation 2 Xilonen, you're going to be doing 50% more Geo damage. If you're a Hydro character and you have Constellation 2 Xilonen, you're going to get 45% max HP increase, which is going to be buffing up Farina's damage even higher. And then you're going to have, if you're an Electro character, a very interesting one, Electro characters are going to get 25 energy and have their elemental burst cooldown reduced by 6 seconds with Xilonen when she activates her resistance shred, which is pretty big for Raiden Shogun because it's not that big of a deal. The energy coming back to Raiden Shogun, she's pretty good at giving herself all of her energy back anyway, but you're gonna need to give it back a little bit faster due to the 6-second cooldown reduction. And that's the real cool thing here, is the 6-second cooldown reduction on an 18-second skill. That's pretty cool. It's gonna have a 7-second burst duration on a 12-second cooldown, meaning that she only has 5 seconds of downtime. Between these two characters, Xilonen as well as Raiden Shogun, you only have 5 seconds of downtime, and that plays actually really well with Noelle, because Noelle, like we said, you can swap in and out of combat with her elemental burst, right? And you can extend the duration of it as well with her Constellation 6. One of the big things people miss with the difference of C0 and C6 Noelle, yes, you get the big additional attack based on your defense, but every time you defeat an opponent, you get an extra 1 second added to the duration of your elemental burst. And this allows you to do very, very cool things. I've used Raiden and Noelle together a lot before in the past, and you're able to like extend the duration of Noelle's burst, and then swap into Raiden, fill up Noelle's burst gauge again, and then swap back into Noelle and still have her burst going and use it for like another 5, 6, 7 seconds. And then as soon as it wears off again, you're ready to pop it all over again. So you're gonna be able to do some cool stuff if you have C2 Xilonen in this team. This team probably will be very good, even if you don't have Constellation 2 Xilonen. But if you do, you're gonna have the ability to just make Raiden Shogun do a bunch of damage. But those are what I'm thinking about using with Xilonen and Noelle teams. I know it's only a couple of teams. I want to hear what you are going to be using down below as well. I know it's a little bit impromptu video, but we're going to have some more, we'll call it shower thoughts. Until then, guys, subscribe for more. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.